Thank you for attending our community Yom HaShoah service. We begin our service with lighting a memorial candle. May this light and this candle help us to remember the destruction that befell the 6 million Jews, 11 million people who perished in the Holocaust. And we begin our service with the singing of Eli, Eli.
Eli, Eli, my God, is a poem written in 1942 by Hannah Senich, a Hungarian Jewish World War II resistance fighter, special operations executive paratrooper, who was sent by the British Army in Yugoslavia to assist in the rescue of Hungarian Jews about to be deported to the German death camp at Auschwitz. She was arrested at the Hungarian border, imprisoned, and eventually tried and executed by firing squad. Hannah Senich is regarded as a national heroine in Israel and was a poet and playwright. Israeli composer David Zahavi set Eli, Eli to music in 1945. Shelo yigamir leolam, hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat Adam, hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat Adam. Adonai, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. Hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat Adam.
Good morning. I'm Jan Widmeyer, and it has been my pleasure and privilege to serve as one of the 8th grade religious school teachers this year. The 8th graders have spent their time with me engaged in the study of the Holocaust, and these students have been grappling with some very tough material. They have studied the historical circumstances that gave rise to Nazism, the increasing anti-Semitism in Germany in the 1930s, the movement of Jews into Nazi-mandated ghettos, the establishment of concentration and death camps, and in the coming weeks, we will learn about the liberation of the camps and the world's efforts to come to terms with the experience. We've done all of this while surmounting the challenges of remote learning, and I want to extend my gratitude to my fellow teachers, Andrea Alterman-Lax, Steph Svars, and Rob Honig, for the really remarkable teamwork they have provided. A silver lining for all of us has been the increased collaboration and support we've provided to each other. Thank you also to Marla Friedman for providing wonderful guidance and leadership in this strange new world we find ourselves in. and my deepest gratitude to Sue Leftwich for enriching our Yom HaShoah commemoration with her musical gifts. I believe this is the 19th year that Sue and I have collaborated on this project. In past years, the 8th graders have had the privilege of gathering together in person with our congregation in our sanctuary, leading the congregational commemoration of Yom HaShoah. Unfortunately, both last year and this year, we've not been able to come together in person because of the pandemic. But our 8th graders are still active participants in this service, supporting Rabbi Koznowski as she leads our remote commemoration of these events. One topic the students and I have discussed in our study of the Holocaust is the impact of individual choices. During the dramatic moment of the Holocaust, hugely significant consequences resulted from the moment-by-moment choices of many individual people. Because one person averted her attention and was passive in the face of evil, someone died. Because someone else embraced evil, others died. Equally, however, because a person held out a helping hand, someone survived. Both big historical trends and the fates of many individuals depended on small day-to-day choices. As the COVID-19 pandemic extends into its second year, and even as we see some hopeful signs, we find ourselves at another such moment where our small, seemingly personal choices, whether to wear a mask when we go to the grocery store, how and when to resume in-person activities, and so on, may have life-altering impacts on ourselves and on others. In most years, I worry that the discussions the 8th graders and I have in our class are theoretical and abstract, and that the students may not quite connect. This year, I know that our students are living in a world where this lesson of the importance of individual choices is part of their lived experience. Perhaps as we engage in this holy act of commemorating Yom HaShoah, we can be inspired to move forward and continue to make choices in our lives that protect ourselves, our loved ones, and our community.
Whenever the Jews were threatened with disaster, the Baal Shem Tov would go to a certain place in the forest, light a fire, and say a special prayer. Always a miracle would occur and the disaster would be averted. In the later times when disaster threatened, the Maggid of Misrich, his disciple, would go to the same place in the forest and say, Master of the universe, I do not know how to light the fire, but I can say the prayer. And again, the disaster would be averted. Still later, his disciple Moshe Leb Asas would go to the same place in the forest and say, Lord of the world, I do not know how to light the fire or say the prayer, but I know the place and that must suffice. And it always did. When Israel of Rizhan needed an intervention from the heaven, he would say to God, I no longer know the place, nor how to light the fire, nor to say the prayer, but I can tell the story, and that must suffice.
From the Memoirs of Gerda Luner. The day after Kristallnacht, the Gestapo came to our apartment to take my father and send him to Buchenwald. Daddy was not home. The Gestapo, 2 of them, searched our apartment for him, including under our beds in the Kinderzimmer. Mother was totally composed and calm, introduced us to the 2 gentlemen, and after the search, they told her to tell Vati, immediately after his return home, to go to the Gestapo headquarters to be deported. Muti, perfectly in control of herself, told them that she would not mention this to Vati, that if they wanted him, they would have to come back for him. They looked at her, at us, clicked their heels, and left. They did not return for Vati. Their quota of, I believe, 30,000 male Jews from Berlin had meanwhile been filled, and he was not needed anymore. After that time, things got rapidly worse.
Chloe, I'm going to have you go ahead and do your part, sweetheart.
Nechma Tech tells Emil Jablowski's story. It was 1942. The gates of the building were locked and curfew was on. I heard a hesitant knock on the door. When I looked, there was Kazakh, dirty, unshaven, and sad. I rushed to cover the window so that no one would see him from the outside. Then I asked him in. He told me the Polish woman with whom he had been staying had sent him away. He had gone to a few friends, but they had all refused to keep him. He assured me that he did not want to endanger me. He had an address to which he would go the next day. He hoped to find permanent shelter there. We let him take a bath, fed him, and made him a bed. Because he looked Jewish, he could only go out in the dark when people could not see him well. For his safety, I decided to accompany him to the new address. When we reached the place, the owner of the apartment, too scared to even talk to us, emphatically refused to shelter him. He had another lead that he followed up that also resulted in a definite refusal. He had no more addresses. He had nowhere to go. What could I do? I took him back to my house. I discussed it with my wife. She agreed with me that we could not let him go and die. We decided to keep him until we could find somewhere with a less exposed place than ours. In the meantime, we moved a closet away from the wall and placed his bed there. And this was where he stayed for over 2 years.
Jagendorf's Foundry, a memoir of the Romanian Holocaust 1941 to 1944, Siegfried Jagendorf. One night, my 15-year-old brother and 3 of his friends contracted typhus while playing cards. A louse jumped from one onto the other. Complications from the disease caused my brother's head to swell up and fill with pus. When the doctor told me that there was no hope of recovery, I refused to accept his opinion and told him I would get the necessary medicine. He looked at me as if I were crazy and told me that he needed surgical instruments. I persuaded him to provide me with a detailed list. Then, without asking my mother, I removed her precious Persian lamb coat from its hiding place and offered it to the furrier. He said he could cut it up and make hats that would dazzle the Ukrainians. We struck a deal, and he agreed to advance me some of the money. I sought the help of a young Jewish woman who was the lover of a local Romanian military commander. She agreed to ask the commander to recommend a trustworthy officer who would accept the generous commission to bring the medical supplies from Budapest to Marafa. I paid the officer, he delivered the goods, and the doctor performed the surgery on our kitchen table. The coat could have not been put to better use. My brother now lives in New York. His face still bears the scars.
From the memoir of Eric Blaustein. Aside from the worsening social situation, life remained fairly even. The Nuremberg laws in 1935 legalized anti-Semitism, but Jews still had their businesses, and until 1938 could still practice law and medicine. Economically, things were still pretty good. While some Jews recognized the writing on the wall and left, others thought that a little anti-Semitism was bearable in order to remain in the fatherland. Many thought that sooner or later, Germany would right itself, and all the problems would disappear like a bad dream.
But the bad dream went on. One by one, official restrictions impinged on our lives. Sometimes the restrictions were subtle. In fall 1936, I took the high school entrance examination. Even though I was an outstanding student, I was informed I had not passed. The next day, we heard that all the Jewish applicants had failed the exams for the city high schools. Undeterred by reality, my father went to the school board and demanded to see my exams. He was refused, but one of the officials, an old acquaintance of his, stopped him outside the office to tell him that the board received orders to fail all of the Jewish applicants. The next year, Jewish children were not even allowed to take the school examinations.
The following are estimates of Jewish losses in Nazi-occupied Europe from 1939 to 1945. Germany, 195,000. Austria, 53,000. Czechoslovakia, 255,000. France, 140,000. Belgium, 57,000. Luxembourg, 3,000.
Norway, 1,000. Holland, 120,000. Italy, 20,000. Yugoslavia, 64,000. Greece, 64,000.
Bulgaria, 5,000. Romania, 530,000. Hungary, 200,000. Poland, 3,271,000. The USSR, 1,050,000. Denmark, 51.
Jews in wartime Denmark. Despite efforts by Himmler and other top Germans to convince the Danes that the Jews were an alien element, Jews remained under the protection of the Danish government. No anti-Jewish legislation was enacted and no Jewish property was expropriated. No Jews were ousted from government posts. After Denmark came under martial law, Karl Best tried to deport the Danish Jews. His plans, confided to a German shipping industrialist, were reported on September 28 to Danish social democratic leaders. The Germans had scheduled the roundup of the Jews for October 1st, 1943, but an extraordinary operation involving the whole Danish people and the agreement of the Swedish government, nearly all Danish Jews were hidden and then ferried across to Sweden, where they remained in safety until the end of the war. The Germans managed to round up some 400 Jews whom they sent to Theresienstadt.
The internment of the Danish Jews in Theresienstadt agitated the Danish government, which repeatedly requested permission to inspect the camp. In June 1944, such permission was granted, and the visit was made by delegates of the Danish Red Cross. As a consequence of the persistent Danish interest in deported Jews, none was sent to Auschwitz. By the end of the war, 51 had died in Theresienstadt of natural causes.
We are searching for Micah. I wonder if he's in my attendees. All right, well, let's see what we can do here. I am going to. Okay. Got it. Rabbi Camel, let's go ahead and go to the gallery so we can see everybody.
There's no more spotlight on, so you just have to go to gallery view.
Okay. Do we see Micah here?
I don't see Micah, and Scott was right next, but he's not here anymore.
Okay. So I want to ask the attendee room. Micah, are you in the attendee room? Can you just text me so I don't want to miss your part?
Oh, but Scott is back.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and go back to Scott.
All right. We must now live up to the meaning of the name of our people, Israel. Only after
Jacob wrestles with God, pull God out of hiding, and strive with God until all slaughter and
Our generation has come to know humanity as it really is. Human beings invented the gas chambers of Auschwitz, however, and are also those who entered those gas chambers with dignity and with the affirmation of Ani Ma'ahim on their lips. To be a Jew means to perceive light in darkness, to hope when in despair, and to live humanly in an inhuman world.
Ani Ma'amin, I believe. This haunting melody was composed by a Hasidic rabbi, Azrael David Fastag, while he was in the cattle cars on the way to the Nazi concentration camps. The song was then sung by many Jewish prisoners as they marched to the gas chambers, and it became known as the hymn of the camps. I believe with complete faith in the coming of the Messiah, and though it be delayed, I will wait. Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Be'emunah shlema, Be'emunah shlema, Bebiad HaMashiach, Bebiad HaMashiach, Ani Ma'amin. Bebiad HaMashiach, Bebiad HaMashiach, Ani Ma'amin. Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Be'emunah shlema, Be'emunah shlema, V'af al pi she'yitmamea, im kol zeh ani ma'amin. V'af al pi she'yitmamea, im kol zeh ani ma'amin. Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Be'emunah shlema, Be'emunah shlema, Im kol zeh achakelo, bechol yom she'yavo. Im kol zeh achakelo, bechol yom she'yavo. Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin, Ani Ma'amin.
Thank you, Sue. Micah, we're so glad you're here. It is time for your part.
But one thing must be clearly stated. Just as the Jewish people have never been the same since Sinai, so they can never be the same since Auschwitz. Each of the 6 million Jews of America must live of two, of him or herself, and of the one of the Jews who perished during the Holocaust. To live for those who perish means to teach the world the message told by the tales of their deaths. We must show others how to hope where there is no hope. How to live humanity in a inhumane world. This is the message of the dead we must bring to the land of the living. May we not be messengers of who forgotten the message. The very existence of the world may depend on it, lest the European Holocaust become purely to a universal Holocaust.
Each of Us Has a Name by Zella, translated by Marcia Lee Falk.
Each of us has a name given by God and given by our parents.
Each of us has a name given by our stature and our smile, and given by what we wear.
Each of us has a name given by the mountains and given by our walls.
Each of us has a name given by the stars and given by our neighbors.
Each of us has a name given by our sins and given by our longing.
Each of us has a name given by our enemies and given by our love.
Each of us has a name given by our celebrations and given by our work.
Each of us has a name given by the seasons and given by our blindness.
Each of us has a name given by the sea and given by our death.
Please rise in body or in spirit and join me in the singing of Hatikvah. Kol balevav penima nefesh Yehudi homiya Ufate Mizrach Kadima Ein Litzion Sophia Od lo avda tikvatenu Hatikvah bashnot apayim liotam hoshi be'artzenu Eretz Sion v'Yerushalayim Liotam hoshi be'artzenu Eretz Sion v'Yerushalayim.
I want to thank, of course, our wonderful 8th grade class for leading us in such a meaningful service. As we always do in every service, but especially in this one here, we end with our mourner's Kaddish, our prayer that takes our griefs and our sympathies, mingles them together, and is able to bring a period of mourning, a time where we can think about all those who we have lost. So I ask for those to continue to rise in either body or spirit as we come together in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'omad yivrach yoteh v'yamlich malchuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala b'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mavarach leolam ulmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudashah b'rechu, La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'oma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael V'imru, Amen. Everyone may be seated.
This concludes our formal service. And so we take a few moments to keep the Zoom room open as we all are able to leave quietly. Thank you for being here today for this holy and sacred commemoration.